All right, we are live and recording. We'll give everybody a couple minutes to get in. If you're already in and you want to say hello to us, feel free to say who you are, where you're at, how do you feel about fitness and health? Are you a novice? Are you an expert? Where are you at in the process? Awesome. Well, I'm going to get started because I'm excited and I think we have a full hour's worth of conversation. So welcome to our coach chat about bringing fitness into your program. It's going to be a little more than just fitness. We'll talk about nutrition, hydration, and a few other things. Today we are featuring Chase Chatfield and Kate McGee. And I am so excited to introduce them. Chase is the esports coach at Van Cleve High School. He started their first season with 11 competition team athletes. And just after 3 weeks of competition, they had a gaming club of over 30 members, 11 of which esports was their first school activity. He also has posted through their Twitter some of the exercises that they do as a program. Thank you for joining us, Chase. Then we also have Kate McGee. Dr. Caitlin McGee is a PT and DPT and received her undergraduate degree in neuroscience and exercise and sports science from Ursinus. Oh, I hope I said that correctly. College, and her doctorate of physical therapy from the University of Delaware. She's been working in esports and orthopedic medicine since 2015. She is a co-owner and performance and esports medicine doctor of 1HP, a company that provides health and performance services to players, teams, and school esports programs, as well as a co-founder of the Esports Health and Performance Institute. Her areas of interest include the effects of exercise on player performance, player perceptions of pain, and the impact of mental health on pain and physical function in gamers. Thank you so much for joining us, Kate. So a quick overview, we're going to start with some physical activity that you can be adding and the importance of that. Then we'll look into hydration and nutrition, other strategies, and then we will have a Q&A section. Please use the Q&A feature if you have questions that pop up during the conversation. If you have a specific person you want to address it to, you can add their name to it. We'll make sure that they get answered as long as we have time. This is being recorded and we will send out the recording usually within 24 to 48 hours of this being done. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Chase with physical activity.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Like Melanie said that I'm Chase Chatfield. I'm in Van Cleve, Mississippi. We are in the southern part of Mississippi, just above the interstate, but we still have to run from hurricanes when they show up. So a big part of our program that I wanted to incorporate was physical activity. I know that, I've been a lifelong gamer, and there are times that I stare at the screen, I don't blink, and I don't move. And if I can play a game with one hand and eat and drink with the other one, that was like the best day of my life. But as I got older, I realized that I could not keep that up. And so I had to start looking at things myself. And once I found some things that worked well for me, I was like, well, I just have to adjust it to the younger audience and try to present it to them in a way that it's not, the old guy saying, hey, we have to exercise, when it's, we're just playing video games. And trying to get them out of the mindset of it just being video games, but it's actually, an e-sport, it's an electronic sport. It may not be activity intensive, but mentally it is very, very taxing. So we got to do some things to help them with that. So as it says on the screen, with the physical activity, we've got longer lasting energy, with regular exercise, be it cardiovascular exercise or lifting weights, even if it's just body weight, that helps your body use its resources, more efficiently and far more effectively. And translating that to kids is like, if you want to play better, you've got to feel better. And that allows you to, get those late night grinds that you're trying to do to be the first person at a certain level or something. It helps you get that and be able to recover a little bit quicker. Mental health and performance, Like it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. If your mind is not in the right spot, you're not going to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. Um, and so the exercise, will helps me personally produce and regulate just the little neurotransmitters and the other science things that make you feel good when you exercise. I think the serotonin and dopamine. I think it's I got a head shake from Kate. Thank you. And that just leads to the feel good, play good. Like even if you're having a bogus game or you're not doing well or you're playing against a team that is outclasses you just because they're better, you can still have a good attitude and you can still work on trying your best instead of just giving up when you go into it. Some of the hardest laughs my team has had this season is when we were getting dominated. Our main team this year is Rocket League, and our varsity team is very new this year. And we play against some very skilled teams throughout the country and throughout our state. And sometimes we just laugh because of some of the stuff that we do. And under normal circumstances, if we're not feeling good about it, if we're not, haven't had the physical activity that we've done, in our practices, or hopefully that they do at home as well, then that humor turns to finger pointing and being toxic and yelling at each other. But instead, we just laugh and try to, see through the tears, regroup, and go at it again so we can, evaluate our performance at the end of our match. Sleep, I know doctors, and I've been told my whole life, I got to go bed at 6 and be home when the street lights on, and you need 12 hours of sleep. I really always thought that was just my parents saying, I need a break from you, so you got to go to bed. But I realized that, sleep is a major part of the recovery process. And, I didn't grow up in a digital age, but our students and our players do. And so the backlighting is awful. And I find that when I just sit there and I scroll Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, whatever I'm doing at night, getting ready to go to bed, when I turn it off, my eyes close, they hurt, they are bouncing all over the place because they're still firing like something's going on. And and looking up stuff, I found that the backlighting or the blue light uh, really keeps your brain going. And so trying to alleviate that pressure from getting tired eyes and eye fatigue over long periods of time of screen time is my way of helping them create better habits to protect them as they get old. Plus with good sleep ends up with better recovery. It turns into, or can turn into, better performance. The ability to handle stress, again, it's not a very physically taxing thing to play video games, but mentally and emotionally, it definitely is. And so I was looking for something like super professional to say about, stress, and not just don't be toxic, make sure that you keep your brand good online and be respectful of their players. But I found something in the 2015 article in the Psychology of Sport and Exercise that talked about cross-stressor adaptation hypothesis. And the basic idea behind that is that if you put your body through stress, such as exercise and physical activity, then it can lead to the ability to handle stress in other parts of your life. So kind of the way I saw that was that if I can push through the burn of a squat or the pain on the shoulders from doing push-ups, then when I get into another uncomfortable situation, I've trained my mind to push through the nerves of that. So, if I'm at the end of a match and it's a 1v1 thing and my heart is pounding and my hands start, sweating, then I can calm myself a little bit to keep going. Me personally, I will probably still lose, but I'll feel better. And that's the big thing. And ultimately with this in our program, I want my players to incorporate that into their gaming at home, regardless of what it is. Forcing them to take those breaks to stretch and make sure their hips are good and their lower backs, are being taken care of. Try to play not slouching, just little things like that they can bring into their everyday gaming life, not simply just their recreational and varsity play.
Yeah, you're really on it there too. Like the ability to handle stress with increased activity. That's mostly because when you do exercise, you produce cortisol, which is, we all know that that is the stress hormone, right? When you do exercise, you bring that hormone level up and then you release it. Like your body learns to process it and clear it out. If you're teaching your body, when this comes along, we clear it out and deal with it, then yeah, you're right. It does carry over to those other situations where you're not stressing yourself physically, you're stressing yourself emotionally or mentally, and now your body's used to, oh, okay, I just clear this on out. I don't have to worry about it. The better sleep one is so huge for this age range population in particular, in part because some of the biggest like recovery and kind of like healing from tissue damage that happens in those deeper phases of sleep. It's when human growth hormone is released too. So it's not just injury recovery, it's literally when you're growing. Um, we also know that folks who don't get enough sleep, not only do they have a lower pain tolerance threshold, and not only do they have worse performance measurably, folks who get more sleep, like even above and beyond what the recommended amount for kind of the high school age range is, which is between 8 to 10 hours. If they're getting more than 8 to 10 hours, they actually perform better. There was a study on basketball players at Rutgers that looked at the effects of adding extra sleep. They had less injuries and better performance overall, which then also contributes to your mental health. Honestly, sleep is like the single biggest like life hack that if you can get your players to do one thing better, get them to sleep more. And one of the ways you can do that is by helping them add more activity in throughout the day so that A, they're more tired at bedtime, and B, they've kind of got a more of a schedule, which like this year has been absolutely bonkers, of course, for trying to keep any kind of schedule, but creating one is really, really valuable when it comes to sleep. It doesn't matter quite so much what exact time you go to bed and what exact time you wake up, as long as it obviously doesn't interfere with your school day. It's more that you're doing it at a consistent time. And so adding an exercise at a consistent time can help kind of balance that out when you go to bed at a consistent time.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful for the iPhone, the apps that they have in there, because it tells you, it gives you like a 45-minute warning. It's like, hey, we know it's 6:30, but it's almost your bedtime because that's what you told us you wanted, And it really takes the time out of, okay, if I go to bed now, then I've got this many hours of sleep and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, the last thing you want to do is be cranky. As a teacher and as a coach, I don't want to be cranky around players. And so if I want to set the best example, then I have to be the best example. And so if that means I get more sleep, heaven forbid I produce better, and I'm able to accomplish more things and just be ready for the day. And, because activities and stuff like that are at the end of a very busy day, of a full school day, whether it's, hybrid and you're at home or you're face to face, like thankfully we are, then it helps us manage the stresses of the practice a lot better. We don't like it. We don't like going to sleep because we're gonna fear of missing out on a lot of things. But like Kate said, I completely agree. Sleep is very good. I'm less cranky. I'm more bearable to be around. And it's and doing the things that I enjoy are a lot more fun when I'm well rested.
Awesome. I'm going to kind of talk about this one, Chase, you can hop into. But in some of our previous uh, coach chats, we've had people talk about some warm-ups, activities, and cool downs that you can do. I totally stole some of these from 1HP and GamerDoc. And there's some videos by Brian Finn that are linked. I will send this out. So dynamic warm-ups. So warming up the body by walking, hinge, and swipe. Again, Brian has these in the videos. I'm not going to get up and show you how to do them right now. Wall holds or wall sits is what I called them. And squats and hip raises are easy ways to just quickly warm up. Then taking a break, I think, Chase, you can kind of hit on this a little more on what you do. I watched your video on your breaks, but walking, taking burpees. Gamer Doc suggested doing like an aim trainer in between doing the aim, like you would do a round of aim training and then go for a quick run, like down and back the hall or something like that. And then cool downs, wrist extensions, wrist flexor stretch. I'm not going to pretend that I know exactly how all those go. There we go. I don't know if they can see you, Kate, and Chase, but seated side bend and standing back bend. I have links in a later slide of videos of this. But Chase, I'd love to hear how you bring the activity into your programs.
So we have, since we're not a traditional sport, physicals aren't required for esports. I'm very limited in the types of exercises that I can do. So I tend to stick with just body weight and really low impact type of stuff. Because again, many of the guys that I get don't play other sports. They're not as physically active as other team sports would be, but I still want them to know that you can still have a healthy lifestyle, and you can really, and by doing that, you're going to debunk the stereotype that gamers have, even though, you know, YouTube gaming, Facebook gaming, Twitch gaming, all of those, if you watch them, have debunked the, you know, the 300-pound dude in mom's garage drinking, you know, Dorito flavored Mountain Dew, you know, where we've debunked that, but it's still the stereotype that we have. So one of the things that we do is that, you know, our kids have been sitting all day. So the first thing that we work on is we get our hips warmed up by doing leg swings, both vertical and horizontal, just to kind of work on getting them open. We do full squats. And so, you know, heels down, working on ankle mobility and just trying to get as low as we can in a resting position, not necessarily holding a floating squat. And then from there, we go into like the hip flexor, hip mobility type things, where we'll do not a split, but we'll work on pushing our knees out, typical, similar to what you would do if you were lifting weights to get them ready. So we're doing like pigeon stretches and, you know, all of that. You do it to your comfort level in body positions. I do it with them. If you do it in the school, take in consideration that your floors are made of the hardest cheap stuff that they can buy, probably. So purchase some yoga mats if you can. Not necessarily if you have a great spot outside and it's not raining, then, you know, that's a great spot to kind of just do that. From there, they go into their just regular warm-ups, you know, their gaming warm-ups. But during our hour and a half to 2 hour practice, we take breaks every 45 minutes to a half hour. In between every game, they're required to get something to drink. So they'll always have some sort of bottle of water that either I provide or they have throughout the day. And so the goal is in that practice time to get to that entire bottle of water. And so we also discuss, you know, daily intake. And in middle school, where I teach, then they're going through the water process and all that kind of stuff. So they know about transpiration and how much body water fluid, you know, and percentages and all that other cool stuff. So it's like connecting, oh, science is real in the real world and it's just video games. And then we kind of have a workout punishment as well. But after we play ranked games or after we compete, currently we do a high school and a middle school thing where for every ranked game that you win, you do 10 push-ups and 20 squats after the match. So the games last 5, 6, 7 minutes, depending on overtimes. And then we step away from it. We get our minds off the game, away from the screen. We get our body flow again. We're doing that. And then we jump back into the next game. After 3 games, we take a full 5-minute break. So 30% of our play time, we're going outside, and it usually ends up just roasting each other and kind of goofing off and stuff. But we're outside when we can to get some, you know, some fresh air, some sunlight, you know, talk about life or the next event that's coming up to school, things along that line. And then at the end of the day, I just make sure that we finish the water that we have. And then when they go home, I was like, make sure you're incorporating this with your home play. You know, every couple of games, take a break, walk outside, get something to drink, stretch a little bit. And then finally we do like hip flexor, like I guess hip raises and a modified camel stretch to where we're arching our back and we're using, I'm not, part of me wanted to go over there and be like, can we do this? But I don't think that would be, right now. But just kind of giving them an idea of, things that they can use it after they've intentionally sat for an hour and a half in one position, that they're going to have to get up and move around and do some stretching. And we were sore for the first couple of practices the first week, because ultimately you're looking at 30 push-ups and 60 squats at the end of a practice or throughout the practice. And so breaking that up a little bit really helps. And then some of them decide, oh, that's really cool, I'm gonna do that at home, and they assign it to like their KD ratio in the games that they play. And they realize, I don't want to do push-ups on my kills, I want to do them on my deaths, because that was too much over there. But as long as they're thinking about it and they're trying to create a way to make them active, then I'm fine with that. But that's kind of what we do. Big ideas, I would love to get into the gym and lift some weights and have some power lifters and big thing. But ultimately it's about their health and their wellness, and helping them generate a lifestyle that they can continue past esports and past high school and middle school.
Yeah. And really the most important thing there is what works for them, right? Like you found a way to integrate it into their practice schedule that's like non-disruptive, and it's like a nice break from when they're sitting for a long period of time. One of the things that we frequently tell the athletes we work with is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Like, sure, in an ideal world, you guys would be able to get into the gym, you guys would be able to lift weights, maybe even go for a run sometimes. But we're not in an ideal world, but that doesn't always happen. So doing anything is better than doing nothing. If you're doing, 15 squats, that's better than doing 0 squats. If you're doing 5 squats, that's better than doing 0 squats. And so kind of helping them to think about it that way. Yes, it carries over into their consistent exercise life, but it definitely carries over into other areas of life too, which I guess is kind of the goal with any intramural athletic venture kids are in, is giving them something they can carry into other areas of practice.
And from a coaching standpoint, to a certain degree, whatever you ask your players to do, you should be willing to do also. Not necessarily that you're capable. So I understand like some people have bad knees or bad wrists and poor elbows, and you've got to modify and take that into consideration. I mean, they can do push-ups against the wall. They can't do squats because of an injury or knees or something like that. They can always do sit-ups, because remember, you have the yoga mats from all the stretches. And my kids call me on that because they know I exercise. And I usually do it with them, as Melanie said, with our Twitter video. I made sure that I did it on time lapse, so I looked good doing it. And they'll, if I'm not in the right clothes or I don't have my wrist guard, to keep my wrist strong during push-ups, I'll tell them I'll do it at home. And rest assured, the very next day, hey coach, did you do it? I was like, yeah, I did it. Where's the video? What you mean, where's the video? If it's no video, we didn't do it. And I'm like, so I've gotten to the habit of like, I've got to wear different shirts, because like, no, that's the same shirt from the first one. It's like, it's my get home shirt. And so like they'll keep you in check just like you're keeping them in check. And as long as you're willing to play along, that's just going to build a stronger program, from the relationships that you're building with them. So that if you ask them to incorporate something that's odd, like exercise in esports, then they're more than willing to, jump right in without a lot of blowback, and it'll help you navigate that a little bit better, even if there is some.
All great advice. Thank you, both of you. Okay, so we're going to move on because we are getting low on time. So hydration and nutrition. Chase, you talked about this a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit more.
So like I said earlier, the hydration, our goal at practice is a 16-ounce bottle, or, if you have your own little water bottle supplied by a really great group called PlayVS, then then you can go through that, and it's easy for me as a teacher and a coach, because I don't have to do anything. I can always be drinking, but as a student or as a player, they're constantly active in that. So creating a time where it's like, hydrate, you've got to take a drink. All right. The match is over. The game is over. Or even better yet, it's a great regrouping thing. If you play a game where you're eliminated, but you wait to respawn, sometimes like games like League of Legends, it takes some time to respawn in depending on the development of the game. That's plenty of time. Take a drink of water, do a stretch real quick, and just like, regain your focus. And just little sips. It's almost like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's one bite at a time. How do you drink 16 ounces of water? One sip at a time. Just kind of get them going. There's a lot of science behind the water. Your body's 70% water. So it's probably a good idea to put that in there, more frequently. I know, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I love me a good loaded tea, and it gives me a little kick, but it will dry mouth me just like that, and I also find that I'm a little bit crankier. And how do you convince kids to drink water outside of school so they can go to the bathroom and miss class? Well, water helps with your complexion. It fills your skin up more. I mean, it's not going to get rid of all the acne, but it can definitely help you look better because it helps you feel better, and all that stuff goes together. So just finding ways to connect it to what they need versus, hey, drink water. It's good for you. And I also make sure that the water doesn't have anything extra mixed into it, and it's 9 times out of 10 it's free. Not right now because of CDC regulations in schools. Water fountains being closed for most part, but we have the water available to them. So if we ask them to do something, at least have the opportunity to provide it for them as well.
Awesome. Kate, do you want to add anything before we
Sure.
move on?
Easiest like shorthand to remember how much water you need to drink in a day. Take your weight. So say you weigh something like 130 pounds, convert that into ounces, 130 ounces. So I need to drink somewhere between 70 and 100% of my body weight in ounces in a day. So I need to drink around 100 ounces of water in a given day. Also works for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I did see somebody in chat mentioning that they've got some kids who don't really like the taste of water, which totally gets bland and boring after a while. Having something to add in, like Noon or Mio, just for some flavor, is a really great option. I really like Noon. I run marathons, so I like anything that gives me extra electrolytes while running. Noon gives you electrolytes, very little sugar, and some carbonation. No, they don't sponsor me, but I would totally take the offer if they wanted to. Mio is also really great because they've got like a whole wide variety of flavors and you can mix and match them. And if you were anything like me as a kid, you probably mixed and matched your things and made potions out of them. So if that's the little thing kids like doing, I get the feeling they'd like Mio too.
I've heard of that stuff, but I really thought it was just simple like mix-ins that gave you the flavor and a lot of sodium and dried you out and kind of counterproductive. So that's cool. I just learned something.
Yeah, no. So your body does actually need sodium to hold the water. It's one of those kind of fine, delicate balances. You need sodium in proportion with magnesium and with potassium, and so something like Noon does a really good job of giving you all of that.
Cool. I know growing up, I used to do the suicides with the soda down the machine at the gas station. Now I got to go out and buy a bunch of Mios and do a Mio suicide in the bottles and be like, all right, I've got the color brown. What does that taste like?
I was thinking the exact same thing. We used to do that too. All right. And if you want to read more, there's a link from 1HP about hydration. And then nutrition. I will let Chase take this and then Kate, you can fill in.
All right, so I'll be honest, my 100% go-to snack food while I'm gaming is circus peanuts, right? They're just orange, they're sugar and fluffy, but they're the shape of the peanut, and like that's my thing. It's super clean. I can put it in my mouth, I can go back to gaming, nothing gets on anything. But the old adage of garbage in, garbage out, you put junk food in your body, you end up with junk performance. When I competed in different things when I was younger, I always drank a lot of water. I was like, wow, I'm fixing to do heavy exercise at 5:30. I can't eat this at 4 o'clock because it's not going to be out of my system by then. I'm gonna feel horrible, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna stop on the way to school and eat a donut for breakfast and, work on that loaded tea and all that type of stuff and just feel blah by the time I'm lunch because I'm so my body's not accepting it and I'm not giving my body what it needs. It's the same thing with this, even though that I'm sedentary and I'm sitting in front of a computer screen, it still takes a lot of energy to be focused and to perform at my best at whatever level that is for you. So, at my practice, there's no snack foods, there's no chips that you don't run up and get chicken nuggets from the store and then come in here and like, you're coming in here, we're focusing on this, we're going to, drink water. once our budget changes a little bit, then I'm looking at doing, you know, some fruits and some like protein and cracker type of thing for that afternoon snack, because we're all hungry after school, you know. And you know, I'm not good at keeping track with stuff. I always start off with a good heart, but I don't. But it's at the very least having that conversation with them was like, hey, what'd you eat today? You know, how are you feeling? And just kind of connecting those through the conversations, I feel really help my players, even though they're like, I really want a bag of chips right now, you know, or I could totally smash a dozen donuts. And it's like, I get it. You're 14. I could do the same thing, but you know, we also need to see the long-term effects of not necessarily how it affects our body at a young age, because we can get rid of it fairly quickly because of metabolisms, but just generating a lifestyle of moderation. So a donut's not inherently bad, but if you eat a whole dozen for breakfast, you know, it can create some problems, you know, down the road.
Yeah, and this is such a really important age group to be working with, not just in terms of setting habits, but helping them build a healthy relationship with food, which doesn't just mean only eating healthy food. Orthorexia is a diagnosable eating disorder at this point. It's an obsession with eating only healthy food. And so really helping kind of push that idea of all things in moderation, including moderation, is a great way to go. So giving guidelines, but then also saying, you know, work within these guidelines, not rigidly follow these exactly to the letter, is really, really valuable and gives, you know, athletes a bit of autonomy. Um, when I played soccer, one of the things we used to say at tournaments when it came to what you could eat between your games was no pigs, no cows, no donuts, which was basically, you know, don't go out and eat a burger, don't go out and eat some bacon, don't go out and eat anything like deep fried. Keep it light. You know, keep it simple, not too spicy, fairly straightforward. You know, you got some max anxiety, you really don't need to add spicy food in your stomach on top of that. But a lot of that is helping them figure out what works well for them. And so a tracker works great. Lots of kids have smartphones. Something like MyFitnessPal is a great option because it has a whole bunch of stuff already programmed in. Even if all they're doing is using, you know, just a notebook and writing it down, here's the things I ate in a day, they can then take a look and see, all right, am I having a vegetable with pretty much every meal? You know, is more than is most of my plate made up of veggies, or is most of my plate made up of bread or pastas? Um, and so kind of that really simple guideline of make most of your plate veggies, then make the next big chunk of your plate protein, and then the last chunk of your plate should be carbs, can be a really easy way to start teaching about kind of balancing out a meal. There's a whole bunch of different ways that meals can work for people. You don't have to be vegan, vegetarian, keto, Mediterranean diet, any of those to be healthy. It's really a matter of what's going to work for you and for your athletes on a consistent basis. And so you're in a really good spot as a coach to help them create a healthy relationship around food and make sure that what they're bringing to snack on is something that's good and healthy. And not to toot our own horn too much, but we do talk about in the article some of the really good kinds of snacks you can have that are super portable for a tournament, because that's always a big concern when you're traveling a lot. Turns out they also work really well for having in a classroom if your kids are allowed to eat in classrooms, or if they sneak food in classrooms on a regular basis, more likely. You know, if they're going to sneak food, make sure it's something healthy and kind of teach them what good options are.
So some of my favorite stuff when I was competitive in jujitsu and CrossFit and stuff, and went to different meets, I enjoyed because I have a sweet tooth, and so I enjoyed like watermelon and honeydew melon and cantaloupe. It would fill me up fairly quickly, but not give me that blah feeling. And then I really enjoyed like the recovery drinks that like Fit Aid. I know some people taste wise, but for me, I personally enjoy it. I don't bring it to school because I mean, it's not allowed. But when it comes to like the protein drinks, let's see the thing in there. Me personally, I find protein drinks have a ton of sugar in it, and if it has a ton of sugar, I'd much rather drink a soda because that probably tastes better for me than that. So I kind of lean away from them. But one of my favorite snacks that I did for in between competitions and in touring was I would make Rice Krispie treats and I'd mix in protein mix with that, something that didn't have a lot of fillers. Main reason because it baked really hard, and so it took you had to exercise to get through it. because it wasn't nearly as soft, but it still got my little sweet tooth taken, and it gave me some of that protein just to get it back into my system fairly quickly in between those two. But yeah, I would love to work that stuff in, and I know a lot of times cost is a big deal. So finding those little things and working with your PTO and your booster club, if you have that for your esports program, can be really helpful to have that team mom of like, on Wednesdays, get with a local gym that has someone that does, nutrition type things as their job, not just as their pastime, and create a meeting to where they can talk to them and have it relate to the esports, and just getting those community relationships of support, so that, if a player comes in and they get recognized, maybe something a little extra get tossed their way while they're there, as a show of support to get them that way. And just that community connection will really help your program grow in the direction you're trying to get.
Yeah, and I found like really portable and also fairly good on the health front and fairly good on the cost front. Dried fruits, great option, especially if you're doing something like dried apricot. Again, it's kind of chewy. It does take a little while to get through, so you get some time to sit there and think, am I feeling full yet? Nuts, trail mixes with an asterisk. If they're like the super duper sugary ones, not so much. If they're a trail mix that you put together yourself, probably a little more likely to be on the healthier side. And then that gets the kids involved in kind of creating what works for them. I've honestly used like portable Go-Gurts. I really like yogurt as a snack. You got that little bit of protein boost in there. Trying to think some of the other ones that we've done that have worked really well. Honestly, we tend to stay away from granola bars because most of the ones that are out there are just super sugar heavy. But again, it's helping the players realize what's healthy for them and what works for them on a consistent basis, and not just saying this is what you must do.
Yeah, I got to cheat and added a few of my favorites because I used to run a lot, but sweet potatoes, like baked sweet potatoes, just with light salt. And then chickpeas, like roasted or baked chickpeas with very little flavor. I'm a curry fan, so put a little curry on it, and it was pretty good. And that also helps if you have nut allergies. So my kid has a nut allergy, so we've had to be more creative on how to get the healthy proteins in. So yeah, thank you. If you want to know more, read the 1HP article. All right. Oops, sorry. All right, so some other strategies and tips and tricks. I'm going to let Chase start out. Oh, you're on mute.
It's the end of the day. Buttons are hard. I apologize. So we talked about the backlighting that just gets your eyes just constantly going. I figured out, or at least for me, that when I stare at the screen so long that they just don't blink, right? And they get super tired. They get super cranky. And I already suffer from dry eyes anyway, so that just makes it even worse. So I bought some for me at home to test out, to see if the blue blocker worked, type of thing. And I find that I'm able to game longer. So I was like, look, if I'm 43 and it works for me, imagine what I could do for, a 15 or 16-year-old. And so what I did is I went out, I used some of our team money, and I bought these. I got 3 pairs just like this, all clear, for I think it was like $17 through Amazon Prime. And so I bought a set of 6. And then you can also get like the clip-ons for your players that already have glasses. And you can get those for like 2 for $18 on Amazon as well. Setting positions really important. I know it's kind of a joke, when if you lose to somebody, the joke is that they're like 2 inches from the screen and their mouth is dropped open and they're dry tongued and all that stuff, but it really is like, if you are sitting up in a good strong position, then you feel good while you're playing, and you can while it may not actually change your ability to play, it feels like it does. And that's just a big part of it. So while we play, I try to get them to, sit in a good upright position. They all have their different styles. I was sharing with Melanie earlier that I've got one kid that can put his head on the back of the chair and make his body completely flat, and his hips are off the chair, and he can hold the controller on his stomach and he's content. I was like, well, of course you are. You're 12. It works, but in reality, and other things where your arms are resting on your legs, you're leaning forward, or you're leaning way back in a really reclined chair. But, it's helping them create good habits as they go along to, keeping their shoulders back, even if it's just for a few minutes at a time to build up that ability. Then proper seating position works. And that connects them to, a lot of schools have like some sort of keyboarding class or learning to type. It's like you can connect that. And so you're bringing in the skills they're learning in class into here. Breaks are important, not only just physically, but mentally. You've got to get up and stretch. You got to get the blood flow. You got to, regroup. Active video games. There's nothing more competitive than Wii bowling. And there's also nothing more awkward than Just Dance. And so, even if it's just taking a little break to have some fun and to goof off and take things not so seriously, and playing games where there's just body movement. If you have the PlayStation games, then I know they've got the lightsaber thing where you can flip around and hit stuff. So that works on hand-eye coordination, and you play an hour and a half League of Legends match. Well, you know what? You're taking a break. If you want to play games, you got 10 minutes over there to, kind of change everything up. The breathing exercise just really helps you regroup. It's therapy sessions, take a deep breath and hold it, bring it back in, namaste, wherever you're at, wherever you find it. We have a 2-minute breathing YouTube video on our Discord. So if somebody flips out and smacks the table, or tosses their controller, or hollers and they just get real agitated, well, it's there on our Discord, and the circle goes open and you breathe in, and then the circle gets closed and you exhale, and so that just kind of goes in and out like that. If you have players on your team that are runners, they probably have a system to where they breathe in and breathe out using your nose and your mouth, and not, and just being able to regulate your diaphragm and the expansion of your ribs and your lungs to control and really, really get the intended benefit of good oxygen circulation through your body for better decision-making skills, quicker skills, just all around feeling better. And then, ergonomics, which is a super fancy word, and we're going to let Kate talk science.
Sure. So when it comes to like sitting position and ergonomics, we like to use the saying, your best posture is your next posture, which is to say what we used to think was that sitting up perfectly straight with your back supported and your chest out and your shoulders back was the absolute best way to sit. The reason we thought that was because there was some research that showed you've got the lowest amount of compressive strain on the discs of your spine when you're sitting at between 90 and 110 degrees. The thing is, though, your discs aren't the only structures in your spine that can take strain. You've got active support structures like your muscles. You've got passive support structures like the facet joints and the discs and the ligaments that connect the various bones in your spine. So it's more important to move consistently than it is to have any one particular posture. Basically, as long as your players can get back to a neutral position, that sitting straight up, arm supported, back supported kind of posture comfortably and easily, then they're probably doing fine. It's most important to have a setup that works around them. And it's definitely tough when you've got rapidly growing young athletes. Their size changing does not always mean that they're going to fit into the standard sized equipment that you've got available to you. So doing a bit of DIY is sometimes necessary. I am a shorter individual. I'm sitting in a very normal height chair right now. The only reason my feet touch anything for support is that I've got a stool underneath my desk, and that's where my feet are supported. That way, my legs are supported at a high enough angle that I'm not feeling like I'm having to slouch in my chair in order to get my feet to the floor. So again, focusing on finding ways to get your players to neutral positions. Their ergonomics should be built around good posture, not trying to get their posture to fit the ergonomics you've already set up, which definitely does take a little more time and effort. As a general rule, you're going to want your feet supported. That allows you to distribute weight both through your butt and through your feet. You're going to want your back supported in some way, shape, or form. A lot of players, especially console players, will lean forward and prop their elbows on their thighs, which in the short term can be okay. Not terrible in the short term. In the long term, though, that's a lot of stress on your arms. So if they need to scoot closer in order to be able to lean back in a chair, that's better. You're going to want your arms supported in some way, shape, or form. For some of us, that means using the armrests that are attached to a chair. For some folks, that might mean putting something in your lap like a pillow and resting your forearms on that. There's also clip-on armrests that you can attach to desks directly. They are less expensive than, a chair with armrests potentially. And finally, if you've got players who are on the shorter side and you're needing to kind of build everything up to fit them, they do also make, they're usually for cars, but they're basically like memory foam armrest covers that will boost the height of them. So if somebody's got shorter arms, you can bring the armrests up to them. But your big goal is always neutral. So not wrists tilted side to side or angled up or down, everything in a nice, relatively neutral position, and everything set up so that they can move and shift easily. Honestly, this is probably the stillest I've sat during a meeting in a long period of time. And even so, I've been crossing and uncrossing my legs. I've been, sitting with both feet on the floor. I've been sitting with both legs crossed. I've been sitting with one leg crossed. And doing that consistently is far better than any single posture you could ever pick up. So really encourage that movement in your players. If they fidget, great, keep fidgeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And now we get to showcase what Kate has been working on.
Yeah, this is, I'm pretty excited about this actually. So the 1HP team has been working on this for about the past year. We created a gamified curriculum. It's 12 weeks that's designed to teach health and wellness behaviors through a gaming perspective. It involves a little bit of campiness and a little bit of cheesiness. And as you can tell by the avatars over there, a whole lot of cartooniness, but it makes things a lot more memorable and it makes things a lot more interesting that way. The idea is you have a party of characters that you need to recruit. The way that you recruit them is by doing various learning resources, videos, articles, etc., and learning about things like nutrition, hydration, exercise, sleep habits, mindset practice, communication, and goal setting. And then from there, they get to test themselves against bosses. And there's a weekly boss fight that you do basically. And the way that you do the fight is tied to the boss's mechanic. So for example, we have Snorgoth, who is the sleep boss. And the way that you beat the sleep boss involves tracking your sleep habits over the course of a week and setting up a consistent 10 or 15 minute bedtime routine or pre-bedtime routine. Players document that, their coach checks and sees that they're doing it on a regular basis. And we also go over how other components, other members of the party, contribute to having better sleep habits, like exercise is a way to make yourself tired, not using blue light too close to bedtime is a way to not keep yourself awake. This is available on an online platform. It's available through gameplan.gg. We're partnered up with them to make this available. So if anybody has interest in that or would like to know more, feel free to reach out to me. We'd be more than happy to get you guys set up with a demo at your various schools.
Thank you so much for sharing. Once I heard about it, I couldn't help it. I made Kate. She had to come and share this amazing curriculum.
I will happily send over the voiceover teaser trailer too, because we're really proud of the work we did on that.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're interested, check it out at gameplan.gg. It is not affiliated with PlayVS. It's just another way to build in health and nutrition with your players. Plus, it just looks fun. I kind of want to do it for myself. So thank you, Kate, for explaining that. She'll send out everything. Just to kind of wrap up, because I know we have some questions. So I listed all of the related resources outside of the articles posted on the various slides. Some are from us at PlayVS directly, kind of like what we did with this. So we have Training with a Purpose featuring Brian Finn. We have Healthy Gaming featuring a whole host of panelists. Mental health, this is about more active listening, but active listening can help bring down the stress and toxicity of your program. In our Play From Home blog, Play From Home, it's got some information about how you can safely play from home. And then we have a 1 HP post-practice stretch, which where I stole stuff from for this. And then GamerDoc also has a fun cool down where they go over how to do the stretching for the wrists. And then we have a few articles that we've been coming out based off of this content as well. So these will be sent in, all of these are linked, they'll be sent for you afterwards. And now we'll do Q&A. We have one question. I'm going to direct this more towards Kate, because Kate, I think this is going to be your wheelhouse here. Are there any physical activities that boost gaming performance more than others? So if there's like special ones you can highlight.
Sure. So we used to think in general in medicine that in order to improve at your or to recover from, say, an injury in your specific sport, we needed to find ways to recreate the function of that sport. This led to us doing weird things like attaching weights to tennis rackets. And it turns out you don't actually need to get that specific in order to get a good benefit. Similarly, when it comes to gaming, you do need to do specific practice, so practice of the specific game that you play. There does seem to be some carryover between precision-based activities and overall improved precision and proprioception. So, for example, kids who play musical instruments may have an easier time with transitioning to playing, a very high actions per minute character. But in terms of, is cardio better than weightlifting for your young athletes? The answer is no. There's not one type of exercise that is going to make you better at gaming than others. All of them will help so long as they are done consistently. It's really anything done consistently that is better than any single type of exercise could be. So we do want them doing some amount of resistance training, whether that's with weights or body weight. We do want them doing some amount of cardio training, whether that's walking, rock climbing, running, karate, whatever it is that they enjoy doing that gets their heart rate up on a regular basis. There's definitely solid research that shows both cardio and resistance activity improving overall brain function, the speed with which you learn things, and your ability to focus and pay attention. There's actually really solid research on doing a high intensity or moderate intensity activity within about half an hour of when you start to play, and having improved focus and attention during the next 2-hour time span as a result. But again, in the long term, it doesn't have to be cardio or weight training in order to be best. It's something done consistently.
Kind of a follow-up from that, and I was trying to follow along, I promise, and read the questions. So I think we've talked about how depending on what game and what character that you play, you might need like different, maybe not training, but like I don't know the right word for it. Sorry, my like medical knowledge is limited. But if I'm a controller player versus a PC player, I think you brought in like a Fox on Smash versus other players. There might be some differences that you need.
Right. So it's more about what tissues are you loading and where is taking on the most strain. So in addition to the generalized exercise, you do also want to address more specific stuff. Like, for example, for our Fox players in Super Smash Brothers, their movements are pretty precise and pretty frequent. So they might need a little bit more work on, say, the kinds of exercises that prevent Descartes' tenosynovitis than somebody who plays a floaty character like Peach, which has a lower falling rate and does more aerial attacks, but less quick attacks. A PC player is going to need different exercises in terms of injury prevention than a controller player is, just because of the differences in your ergonomics and how your setup works and functions. So the most important thing is figuring out kind of what the specific needs of the player are and what specific areas are undergoing the most stress at any given time.
Okay. And if anybody wants to learn more about this or invite somebody to their school, I know 1HP does do work with schools, so you can visit them at 1HP, or also look for like local physical therapy places or hospitals that may have somebody that is willing to come in and chat with you in your program. I highly recommend that. Chase, I think you've talked about how you had somebody coming in to talk with your program. That's how we got involved with Brian Finn. He was reaching out to local high schools to help them out. So just be looking for people that will help you so that you don't have to have all that knowledge as well. We have a little bit of time left. So somebody asked also nerve flossing versus traditional SMR methods for gamers. I don't even understand that question.
Right.
So
So
I'm going to guess, Kate, you can answer
I
it.
do. So SMR is self myofascial release. It's foam rolling. If you've run, you've absolutely done it before. Um, it depends. This is an answer I give a lot in PT. The answer is it depends on what your goal is. So if you have an existing nerve issue, nerve flossing is valuable. Nerve flossing refers to the idea of pulling on either end of a nerve by putting various parts under tension. Nerves don't have much stretch to them, and they all originate from your brainstem. So if, for example, you wanted to do nerve flossing of your sciatic nerve, which runs down the back of your leg, you would sit in a slumped position, extend your leg outward, and pull your toes towards your face. And then to floss, you'd push the toes down while tilting your head down, push your head up while pulling the toes up. The idea there is that you're pulling first on the bottom end of the sciatic nerve and then on the top end to move it through all the tissue that it has to pass through in the process of going from neck to foot. Can be valuable if you're dealing with like adhesion type issues. Most of the time, what we're seeing is more muscle tension in general, in which case making the nerve glide more smoothly through the tissue doesn't address the fact that the tissue is tight in the first place, in which case going for the foam rolling or using something like the stick, like capital T, capital S, the stick, it's a brand name, or using something like a Theracane is a really great option too. A Theracane is like a kind of hooked self-massage tool, so it can get at your back really easily. They're great. They're absolutely lifesavers if you have any neck or back soreness, and they're like $20.
Awesome. And this question seems quite long, so you may have to like type out your answer because I don't know how many coaches are interested in this one, but we'll try it out. So they're creating various training models for esports athletes, taking into account the various PubMeds and studies done on physical fitness as it relates to esports. What do you think the best direction to initially start with, considering the millions of training models that currently exist? This, of course, is for an athlete that is cleared to exercise and doesn't have any massive dysfunction.
Again, the answer does have to start with it depends. It depends on who the athlete is, what their goals are, what their history is, what their background with exercise is. The kind of biggest points I'd hit on if you're designing a program like that. First, consider what their entire year's worth of schedule is. This allows you to periodize their training or basically ramp up training during the off season and begin to ramp it down a little bit when they're starting to play during their in-season phase. That allows you to peak during playoff periods without being burnt out in the process. Two, consider what they have available to them on a regular basis and what they'll actually do on a regular basis. Again, consistency is more important than any specific type of exercise. And a lot of that has to do with accessibility, about access in general. When you're working with a team, it can be really valuable in terms of team building to make it something that the team can do together. One of the things that we've done with a bunch of the professional Overwatch teams that we've worked with, especially for players who are kind of resistant to getting into more intense or highly focused exercise to begin with, we got the team doing a weekly dodgeball game. They're competitive as heck about it. They have lots of fun while doing it, and they're getting activity in the process. That gets that initial buy-in. So that kind of leads to my third answer here, which is you got to get them buying in. If they're not buying in, the best design program in the world would do diddly squat because they won't stick with it. So find the things that matter to the athlete. Make sure you periodize the training around the full year's worth of a schedule, both including their schedule as a gaming competitor and also their schedule with school or work if they are not a full-time gaming competitor. Consider what is available to them and what they will do routinely on a regular basis. And make sure that it accounts for their specific backgrounds. You can make a general template, but then you're going to have to tweak it for each player. And yes, that's a good point. A lot of gamers are interested in aesthetics as a starting point, as opposed to like getting stronger, which totally valid. Aesthetics is a totally valid reason to be working out. Just again, finding what is going to allow them to achieve their aesthetic goals without kind of overwhelming them, leading to burnout or leading to feelings of frustration. Yes, ideally, I'd love to have my athlete to the gym 3 times a week and running 2 times a week. Most of them don't want to do that. And that's okay. That is valid. The more important thing is find something they'll do consistently, and then I can periodize that to make it work.
Awesome. Thank you. So while you're talking, it reminded me of our training with a purpose. Brian Finn goes into how he creates a schedule for his Smite teams. And so, takes in all those parts too. So great visual to look at as well. I'm sure 1HP has stuff too. I just don't have it all memorized. Just to kind of end us out, we do have prepping for playoffs next week and then funding and sponsorships for our next coach chats. And then we're going to take a pause during playoffs because everyone's going to be super busy playing on nights and broadcasting. So we'll kind of calm down and then we'll pick up and decide what to do after that for summertime. So thank you again. It's a little late to sign up right now for spring, but you can start thinking about for fall. Again, 1HP is a great resource. They have the ability to go and work with your schools. They have blogs and articles. They have a Patreon with even more blogs and articles. Slightly obsessed. So thankful to have Kate from 1HP to come chat with us. Now they have the curriculum. So check them out. Great resource on top of checking out GamerDoc and Brian's content and a few others. But 1HP is like my go-to. Chase, thank you. Chase has been a great model on how to actually incorporate this into your program. So thank you, Chase, for coming and talking about that. I hope everyone has a great evening and I appreciate all of you coming. And with that, I will end the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.